everybody, and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Today, I'm super excited to be sharing with you guys one of my favorite narratives for this cycle that I believe is going to generate some of the more profit in comparison to all of the other narratives we could possibly trade. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the Atropa ecosystem on PulseChain, why this is setting up for such life-changing returns, and how it's one of the best fundamentally designed ecosystems I've literally ever seen in crypto, and what the charts are telling us for 2025. I firmly believe that anybody invested into this ecosystem is going to make a lot of profit, life-changing gains, and it's only going to take a year to be able to do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you find any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, and without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are to start off today's video, and I'm really excited to break this down because this is going to be the first time I've truly broke down the entire Atropa ecosystem. Many people are going to be looking at the PulseChain ecosystem as having nothing here, but truthfully, PulseChain has actually ranked number 2 in TVL for the last month. It consistently has a lot of high volume, and we see a significant amount of projects that we can actually look to invest in that are tangible and have real fundamental advantages. When I'm looking at the Atropa ecosystem, I really don't think that there's a better narrative on all of PulseChain, and it's the most legit thing that exists over here, besides, maybe the initial dexes and some of that. When we're looking at Atropa, it's one of the greatest developed things that I've ever seen because of the way everything's liquidity bonded together. I'm going to go through and read this article by Coexistence Steven. You can literally follow him on Twitter under that exact same name. This is the #1 guy when it comes to understanding the Atropa ecosystem. I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't fully understand all of the minor details, but I do believe I know enough to be able to explain what it all means to you guys, and by the end of the video, when we're going through the charts, you'll be able to see the value that is actually here and ready to be tapped into. Coming down here, we're going to go all the way back down to the very bottom of this article, and we're going to be talking about Hart's Law and liquidity bonding, because I truly believe this is the most important thing in all of it, and it's really the reason why all of the charts I'm going to share with you pretty much are doing what they're doing. Richard Hart, more or less what he said is that if you take two coins, bond them in the liquidity, they're going to rise together in price. Now, this works both bullish and bearish, as we've seen many times. If you have Ethereum and you launch your new coin, you pair them together in the liquidity pool, and then Ethereum has a big sell-off, your holders might not even be selling off your coin, and you can literally track that on the blockchain, but Ethereum going down so much is actually dragging your liquidity with it, and then it causes your price to also sell off. So that's why it's so important that we're liquidity bonding with the right tokens, the good tokens that we think are going to outperform, because if we are, by default, the liquidity pool rising with the outperforming token, it's going to rise and lift all ships. A rising tide lifts all ships, so to speak. That's more or less what the entire Atropa ecosystem is. But if we come down here, notice how we have Atropa right in the middle, and we've got all of these different ratios and percentages in which the LPs are all shared. But the #1 thing over here is pDAI. This is PulseChain DAI. The reason this is so important is because this is going to be the epitome of the whole narrative around what is Atropa, what does it do, what's the whole point of everything. When we're talking about pDAI, PulseChain DAI, this is the forked version of DAI that was duplicated when PulseChain went live. Because remember, PulseChain is a hard fork of Ethereum. Richard Hart literally forked Ethereum, copied everything, including all of the tokens, and then pasted it over here into the PulseChain ecosystem. When that happened, all of the same tokens that were on Ethereum now exist on PulseChain. The difference is, they don't have any liquidity, and they're not technically the same token. They're a forked version of that. So when that happened, when PulseChain went live, it was called the biggest free airdrop in history, because anybody that was holding tokens, ERC20s over on Ethereum, got them duplicated onto PulseChain. So anybody could go provide liquidity to these tokens, and if they rose organically in price, you just actually had free money. And so that was the whole premise around PulseChain going live. The beauty of this is pDAI. Remember, DAI is a stable coin on Ethereum, and it was also forked, and it was copied and put over onto the PulseChain network. When that happened, it sparked this brand new narrative around the idea that PulseChain is going to organically rise. It's going to be liquidity bonded to the Atropa ecosystem, and as the liquidity rises and lifts everything together, when PulseChain ultimately goes upwards close to $1, Richard Hart is the #1 holder of DAI. And you guys probably don't even know that. If we come over here and look at this article article written and posted by Binance News, might I add. According to Coinsu, DeFi Llama founder OXNGMI has highlighted a concerning situation in the decentralized finance sector. The two largest holders of DAI, a popular stablecoin, are associated with two externally owned accounts, EOAs, holding a combined 430 million DAI, equivalent to approximately 11.3% of the total DAI supply. These addresses are affiliated with PulseX and Hex, projects controlled by Richard Hart. Isn't that interesting that when we're looking at this ecosystem, that Richard Hart is the #1 holder of real DAI on Ethereum. So that's really where this narrative comes into effect. The idea is if pDAI, the forked version on PulseChain, can organically rise close to $1, then Richard Hart can ultimately implement a maker in the same way that DAI works with MakerDAO. Richard Hart can add that. He can ultimately use his own liquidity from being the #1 DAI holder to peg that and pair that value at $1 on the PulseChain network. And then by default, pDAI becomes the only truly decentralized stablecoin in the entire market. The issue with all of the other stablecoins is that they are ultimately centralized. Your keys and wallets can be frozen, or your address, so you can't actually interact with the blockchain anymore. That's, you know, centralization at its fullest. So the idea that if we're going to have a truly decentralized market, which we've always believed since 2016, in 2017, that was the whole premise. How do we be real DeFi? How do we be truly decentralized? So much has changed from that point that the idea of having a truly decentralized stablecoin, most people don't even believe it's possible. pDAI is the way it can happen. Richard Hart has the liquidity of real DAI to be able to actually make that pairing. And then not only that, but if the Atropa ecosystem creates true liquidity on the open market and then, you know, causes the price of pDAI to go close to $1, it's truly possible to make that pairing actually happen. And that is the beauty of the Atropa ecosystem. So I'm going to come over here now and share with you guys some charts, because I think that it's important that we're talking about what the charts show, because the fundamentals in the narrative, that's super, super important, but they should reflect what is being said in the narrative in the chart as well, which it really does. Looking at Atropa being the #1 in the ecosystem, because remember, when we're looking at this chart, Atropa is right here. This is going to be the first one we're starting with. And if we come all the way back to its first cycle, this is where the Atropa ecosystem and narrative really spun off. All the way back in mid-2023. Atropa started running really hard once the PulseChain dev was kind of, you know, talking about this, spreading some of the initial narrative at one of the meetups that happened. That's where we ended up seeing a lot of the OGs. That's really where B-Roots kind of jumped onto this at the beginning, and he was the first influencer I saw to more or less be talking about this. And for you guys that don't know who B-Roots is, I'm talking about Moon King. But what we ended up seeing was our first 5-wave rise to begin that cycle. ABC correction, and then all we've done from that point was make another 5-wave rise, another correction, and so this entire move is a wave 1 and then another wave 1 of 3. No, more or less, but without getting too into details of Elliott wave theory, what that basically means is that the next impulse coming is going to be the most impulsive, the most parabolic, and this thing is going to absolutely demolish these prior all-time highs. I think it's going to pretty much just make these prior ones almost look like they're hard to see on the chart. That's how high I'm anticipating this to go. And that's just what the charts are showing us right now. Now, this is Atropa, right? This is just the #1 in the ecosystem, valued actually less than a lot of the other tokens that we're going to talk about. The next one we're going to talk about is Teddy Bear, which we can come back over to this chart and we can see Teddy Bear kind of over in here. And if we come over here, we see it twice. So Teddy Bear is the #1 meme coin on the PulseChain ecosystem, and it's actually also inside of the Atropa ecosystem. If we notice how this chart looks familiar to the Atropa chart. They're pretty much the same. I would argue just the difference is maybe Atropa looks a little bit more bullish. Looking at Teddy Bear, they follow the same. The reason why is this same chart that I've been talking to you guys about. They're all liquidity bonded together. In the way that I started the video saying that a rising tide lifts all ships, you know, these are all liquidity bonded to certain varying degrees and amounts. So when that happens, we're talking about all of these charts going to end up following each other as well. So if Atropa starts really doing well, it's going to by default drag up Teddy Bear because they're in the same liquidity pair together. So this is Teddy Bear. Looking at this, it's just following the same thing. Now over here, this is where we get into pDAI or PulseChain DAI. Notice how this one's actually more bullish than all of the other two I just showed you. The reason why is because this is the whole narrative in my opinion. Looking at it being worth 87 million in market cap and it's, you know, a fraction of a penny. If this thing was to organically rise, which I do think that it's going to based off this narrative, and it was able to hit, you know, 20 cents, there's a 50x. If it was able to hit, 50 cents, there's 130x. And if it was ultimately able to rally to $1, you're talking like 250 plus x percent. So that's going to be absolutely life-changing type of gains. And I do think that this is the narrative to watch because there is a lot backing this narrative. It's not just some make-believe thing. The idea that Richard Heart really is the biggest holder of DAI in the normal world on Ethereum. He has $430 million. Not to mention all of the money that the guy raised for PulseChain, PulseX, and those sacrifices. He's got literally so much money to be able to throw at this ecosystem. And people hate on Richard Heart. Don't get me wrong, I was one of those guys. I still continue to kind of hate on the guy sometimes because he's kind of, he's just kind of annoying and obnoxious sometimes. But nonetheless, what he's created is so valuable. And I'm always trading on multiple chains. I don't give a crap about what chain it is. I don't give a crap about what you think about the creator or the project. If I see value on it, I'm going to go make money on it, and I could care less what anybody else says after that. That's my premise for investing in a PulseChain. Everybody hates Richard Heart. Everybody says he's an idiot scammer. But when you look at the entire ecosystem over here, it's actually going to provide some of the biggest gains out of all of the other chains. And so, people are going to continue to hate. They'll click off this video, and they will miss out on a lot of profit. But I'm telling you guys right now, as somebody who's been going on 9 years into the market, who's made literally life-changing amounts of wealth by being early, I bought Solana at the last cycle at the bottom. I bought Terra Luna at the bottom of the last cycle. Phantom Networks, so many tokens that have done over 100x, over even 1000x type returns from my entry. This is one of those type of things that I look at and I'm like, oh man, this is exciting. I think that this is going to provide that type of opportunity in the ROI potential. I'm jumping on this narrative because it's very seldom you find these type of powerful narratives in a community that can actually push this type of, appreciation in price. Looking at pDAI, all of these are setting up for the same type of parabolic move. Like I said, this is a wave 1, this is a wave 1. What comes next is wave 3 of 3, which is the most parabolic and impulsive. Like I swear to you guys, the amount of upside that's going to happen in this next move is going to blow people away. And that's why I think we should do our part by being prepared for it. But there's other tokens, right? There's USDC. It pumped even harder out of this recent move. It's sitting all the way back up here at range highs. That's another one. Notice how all of these charts look exactly the same. USDT, another one. The whole premise is that they're going to be able to make a backing and pairing, and PulseChain will be kind of the epicenter of all of the truly decentralized stablecoins. And if there is going to be the potential of us having a truly decentralized stablecoin, there is no better place that I see that happening than PulseChain. So you might as well follow the narrative, right? So all of these are going to be pretty much just the stablecoins. They all look the same, right? Coming over here, this is PulseChain Maker. This is the forked version of MakerDAO. Remember, MakerDAO is what makes DAI work. It's the thing that creates the peg for the entire system. So when we're looking at PMaker, I think that this is probably the next best narrative to be following aside from pDAI itself, because pDAI is the stable coin of the system. Well, PMaker is the DAO that's going to stabilize the price, so to speak. So whether that even happens or not is besides the point. It currently is broken out of downtrending resistance. It's made its first Elliott wave impulse, finished its ABC correction. Now with us breaking out, I honestly think it's about to go pretty parabolic and start running into a new all-time high. And it's going to really catch people by surprise because this one's probably more undervalued than any of them. Sitting at 12 million in market cap, all tokens are circulating. And there's also a very tiny supply of this, guys. A very tiny supply. So it's not going to take very much money to see the valuations of these things just balloon super crazy for short periods of time. And I think that that's the value of all of this. I mean, the last one is Wrap Bitcoin. This is also not the same. Notice how it's $212. It's obviously not Bitcoin, but this is also inside of the same ecosystem. It's part of the same narrative that people are speculating on. Coming over here, it's got 32 million in market cap. However, the supply of this Wrap Bitcoin, it's like 150,000 that exist on PulseChain. So it's a super, super fine supply. You know, this thing is going to do kind of the same thing that Hex did. The reason Hex pumped so hard in the last cycle is you had so many people staking it for 15 years down the line, and it had such a huge amount of that supply that just wasn't able to be traded. It was all getting locked up. And then you had Richard Heart that held 90% of the supply because of the way that the whole Hex ecosystem launched. So you had him holding all of the supply that he wasn't going to sell. you know, all of that supply is just dead, basically. Then you had all of the people sending it into 15-year stakes at the same time. It didn't take very much liquidity to see the price of that thing balloon, and Hex hit 100 billion in market cap in the last cycle. The whole PulseChain ecosystem is kind of centered around that scarcity, and a lot of these tokens are all going to be fairly scarce. Now, the stablecoins maybe not themselves, but the fun thing about this narrative is just the idea that if this is going to be where the truly decentralized stablecoin is spawned out of, you might as well play the narrative because, you know, if any of these end up hitting close to $1, you're talking hundreds of X's of return, and that to me is just worth the gamble in my opinion. So guys, this is the video I had for you. If you liked this video, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. You don't want to miss out on any of this content. For you guys that want to actually learn a little bit more, I will link this article in the description that I talked about. I think it's really solid. You guys can go through and kind of look at it from your own point of view. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. I really believe this is a solid narrative to follow, probably the best narrative on all of PulseChain. So if you're going to be buying on PulseChain, you should probably be following along with this as well. With that being said, I love you. Thank you for the support. I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.